Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this session of our NPTEL course, Appreciating Linguistics, a Typological Approach. We were talking about typology and language change. And if you remember the primary discussion that we had in the previous session, it was about how there are two different kinds of cross-linguistic generalizations we should draw, or you can say cross linguistically what kind of correlation we can draw from languages from a development perspective, acquisition perspective and use perspective, right. And there were two sets of generalizations we have had so far. The first one, generalization 1, was related to the evolution of articles from a diachronic point of view. How do you think, or what could have been the possible trace to claim that articles have been a part of English language system. So, we had definite and indefinite articles, and if you try to recall, we had 4 different parts of each generalization. We started from an initial stage, final stage, then intermediate stage and then the condition. So, initial stage is and there was a formula also related to it. So, when it is initial stage, that means there must be some potential which like if you find out like a component x, you should be able to find out what should have been the origin of it. So, the origin of this particular component is considered to be the initial stage, and the final stage, what could have been the possible reason why the origin, let us say it is A. So, why A has become x, and if x is the final stage, what could have been the possible, or what are the potential that initial stage A has, which may eventually result in the final stage x. Then between the initial A and the final x, there could be some other intermediate stages which could be considered as C, and these intermediate stages, it depends on what sort of changes it has gone through. And finally, to encounter or to explain changes like this, we should be able to identify certain conditions, and the conditions here are primarily related to language change or the language contact. So, if there is a change in language, then there must be some contact relation, which is why this particular language it has started from the stage A and it has reached the stage x. Okay. So, that is how we are going to proceed further with the existing discussions that we have had in the previous session, not sections. So, when we were trying to understand what could have been the trajectory of evolution of articles in human language, then we realized that there are enough empirical evidence which would give us an impression that the definite articles, they might have arisen from the demonstratives. Definite article like the, it must have arisen from demonstratives like this, that, these or those. And the final stage, the generalization related to final stage is that since there is a demonstrative we have in hand, it has the potential to change it in, or to change itself into definite article. So, that about it, definiteness. There are indefinite articles, and in English the indefinite articles might have arisen from the numeral 1. So, from 1 it has become an, or it has become a, and so that is the final stage. So, initial stage is demonstrative, final stage is definite article. Initial stage is numeral 1, final stage is indefinite article. Then in between we have multiple intermediate stages, and these intermediate stages might have gradual phonological, semantic and morphological reduction, which is how, or which is why we have had the end product either the definite or the indefinite article. And what could have been let us say the possible reason of this change, the reason could be language contact, which might have triggered or accelerated the development of articles. So, that was the first set of generalization from a diachronic perspective. Then we are trying to figure out what could have been the historical path for the development of major word order, right. So, when you think about word order, you have the subject, object and verb, then we have subject, verb and object. These are the two most prominent word orders found in any given language. So, the logic or the argument here is that if you, okay, let me put it in this way. If you think about the initial stage, then the beginning of this entire variation in the word order, it might have started from SOV thing, right. So, the default word order is SOV, and then the rest of the things might have been derived from it. So, and then there was a picture, yeah. So, here is a table here. So, you have the SOV, which is the initial stage, and from SOV you have other kinds of derivations. So, OSV, OVS, SVO, VSO, VOS, all kinds of derivations are possible, but the initial stage is primarily SOV. So, that is what we have discussed as far as the word order historical development is concerned. And out of the all the let us say, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, out of these different kinds of like 6 different, basically the 6 different kinds of word order, which ones are the most popular one, the SOV and the SVO, and which one has the rarest ones, OSV and OVS. So, why OSV and OVS are the rare ones? Because they are the end product, they are the final stage, and they do not result in derivation of anything else. So, that is the reason why we can come up with the generalizations which are stated here on the computer screen. So, look at generalization 2, which is related to the historical path of the word order, and what we have what we have identified so far, what the linguists have come up with, the contention that they have is that the most common word order change in major sentences, they constitute the major sentences that constitute, it starts with SOV. So, the initial stage is primarily SOV, and object initial orders are not any initial stage. So, OVS and OSV, these are the final stages, they can never be considered as the initial stage, and the initial stage has always been SOV, right. And as far as the intermediate stages are concerned, okay, so after that let us go to the final stage. As far as the final stages are concerned, it is OVS, OSV, initial is SOV, right. Now comes the intermediate. So, in the intermediate stages you have the V initial order is going to be the intermediate. So, VSO and VOS. So, these are the intermediate. So, maybe I am going to write it like this. To put it in simpler terms, if it is initial, intermediate and final, right. So, SOV is definitely initial, and OVS and OSV are definitely final. So, then what are the intermediate stages? Intermediate stages are SVO, and it could also be SOV sometimes. Then you have VSO and VOS. Then you can ask me, how come you have initial, how come you have SOV in both initial and intermediate stage? Because you remember the previous arrow marking was that SOV is can also be an intermediate stage, but this is primarily like you can consider it as an infrequent intermediate stage, because this will always be, in most of the cases, the SOV is always at the initial stage. So, that is the reason why this kind of a word, or this kind of the historical path has been traced so far as the word orders are concerned. And then comes the question, what could be possible conditions for which we have these kinds of word order? This is the frequency. So, one particular frequency, one particular word order has the maximum frequency, and then OSV and OVS, they have the minimum frequency. So, what could have been the possible reasons for it? So, now the concern here is that the reason could be, so SOV may be a final stage in change from SVO or SOV, and if you are thinking about SOV, it will be the final stage from SVO if SOV is either borrowed from one language or is the result of grammaticalization. So, two things you need to remember. If SOV is the final, SVO is the initial, in that case the reason is that you might have, or this particular language might have gone through grammaticalization, or it could have been borrowed from some other language. Otherwise, there is absolutely no reason why you should have such kind of conditions, okay, or why you should have such kind of constituent path, like the development of constituents or the development of word order in this way. Now, with this information, or like with this generalization related to word order, let us go and find out how the evolution of correlation, evolution of such kind of correlation pairs have happened. So, what is the, how has it happened, how has the evolution of correlation pair has happened. So, now as of now, if you remember, when you are talking about S, O and V, so look at the table that we have here. One side we have S and O and V pattern, the other side we have V and S and O pattern. So, the concern here is that these two types, or these two language types or linguistic types, they would have a certain way of expression of phrases. When it is S, O, V, that means the first type, look at the table, it is possessor, possessum. So, remember there was this ladki ki maa, that kind of a construction in Hindi, right. So, in that case it is going to always be possessor, possessum, it is always going to be noun phrase and adposition. And what are the examples? Hindi, Japanese and Turkish, right. And in case of VSO, you have Arabic and Rapa Nui. So, in case of VSO format, it is just the mirror image, okay. And if it is possessor and possessum in SOV, when it becomes VSO, it becomes possessum and possessor. Noun phrase and adposition, in case of SOV, in case of VSO, it is going to be adposition and noun phrase. My suggestion for you would be, go back to the data that we have discussed and find out how this kind of the correlation pairs. So, how this kind of a correlation pair has evolved by now. Since we have identified or we have observed what the typologists have already claimed so far, is that when you are talking about the word order, there is a certain by default condition or the initial stage, then there is a final stage, and between the initial and final stage there are multiple intermediary stages which might have resulted from two things. One, borrowing from other languages, second might be the grammaticalization. So, these are the two possible things, or the two possible reasons for which you have all kinds of word order patterns. Now, with this information, let us move to the correlation pair that we have that we just noticed. One correlation pair is SOV, the other correlation pair is VSO. So, SOV we have Hindi, Japanese, Turkish, and VSO we have Arabic and Rapa Nui. So, in case of Hindi, Japanese, Turkish category, the relation is possessor, then possessum, noun phrase, then adposition. In case of VSO, just the opposite. So, we have possessor, possessum and possessor, adposition and noun phrase. So, now the question comes, which one has come first, which one has come later, and how this kind of correlation pairs have evolved so far. So, now let us see, when you maintain such kind of word order, let us say a particular language changes from OV to VO, that means let us say the book read to read the book. In such cases, what sort of linearization that we have. So, whether you are going to see, say, the boy's book or the book of the boy. So, the GN pattern would be, I am just briefly writing over here, let us say the change is happening from OV to VO. In case of OV, that is the okay. So, no, in case of OV, I am going to write the book read, the book read, this is one type. When it becomes read the book, my suggestion would be to think about Hindi versus English. I read the book or मैंने किताब पढ़ी. So, that kind of a change. So, does it like when this kind of change happens, we also see the possessor possessum relation also changes. In case of OV or in, yeah, so one way you have this the book of the boy. So, let me write it as GN and NG. So, this is GN, this is NG. GN is the book of the boy versus the boy's book. Okay. So, in case of the boy's book, the noun is the boy, like here this is NG. The boys, that's so the boy's book is the NG form and the book of the boy is the GN form. So, in such case, the movement of GN to NG or possessor possessum to the other way round, or NP noun phrase adposition to the adposition noun phrase, what kind of how did such evolution happen and what are the linguistic evidence or the empirical evidence for it. So, do you think there has been any encyclopedic work on the cross linguistic tendencies of syntactic change? So, this kind of change, so OV to VO is primarily syntactic change, because the position of the subject and the position of the object, position of the verb is getting changed. So, this kind of syntactic change, do you think there is a cross linguistic tendency? That is what we are going to see this. So, like that is what we are going to see from here onwards for a couple of minutes. So, Alice Harris and Lyle Campbell, they have identified two ways by which the phrase internal constituents may keep lockstep with word order change. So, that means the internal constituents remain same, it is just that the word order gets changed. So, O and V, they are still a constituent, V and O, they are still a constituent, but why, how, what is changed here? Only the order had changed. But John ki kitab or you can say ladki ki maa, no, I am going to talk about OV and VO. Let us say kitab padhi and padhi kitab. So, maine kitab padhi. So, in that case, when you say kitab padhi and padhi kitab, or read the book or book the read, so they would still be considered as a constituent, it's just that the word order has changed. So, now the question is, if such things happen, what is the empirical evidence that helps the typologists or the linguists to find out or to identify this kind of this is the trajectory or this is the developmental path by which you can claim that such kind of changes have happened. One example we will discuss here. There are many examples in the book. So, I have chosen only one, that is German. Why German is interesting for us? Because this language has undergone a change from OV to VO. So, initially it used to be SOV, but now it has become SVO. So, because of this change or because of the evolution of this let us say this kind of correlation pairs. So, then what sort of idea do we have about cross linguistic typology here, right? Because of, and just to make you aware about this change, how to come about or how to identify such changes through the empirical data, and what else does the empirical what else do the empirical evidences say us so far. So, if you look at the original OV order, okay, now go back to OV. So, when it is OV, look at this example, there are two sets, look at the OV. So, in case of OV order, how do the adpositions and the noun phrases work? So, here if it is OV, then the noun phrase comes first, then comes the adposition. If it is VO, the noun phrase might come later and the adposition might come before that. So, it depends whether it is a preposition or a postposition depending on the word order that it has. So, according to the original OV order, most adpositions were postpositions, right, if you think about OV. So, that means German must have had evidences where the adpositions are postpositions, and now since the word order had changed, it has become VO, then probably it also has prepositions now. So, between this postposition and preposition story, there would be a third group of adposition. So, what is that group, like what that kind of an adposition, we will check it in a while. So, let us look at the data. So, this is the German data that we have. We just discussed either it will be a preposition or it will be a postposition. If it is a preposition, it should come before the noun phrase. If it is a postposition, it should come after the noun phrase, and there is a third category that German has, which can be treated either as a preposition or as a postposition because of the change or because of the flexibility of its location or because of the flexibility of its position. Now, let us look at the example in 7a. 7a, this is only preposition. So, in the city, around the city. So, what is the preposition here? In, So, and look at this, why they are called prepositions? Because they are happening before the noun phrase. In case of only postpositions, you can say willen. Willen, that means for the sake of. So, in this case for the sake of something. So, in this case for the sake of something. So, something is the noun phrase and willen has become the postposition. So, 7a is the only preposition, 7b is only postposition, and in the case of a phrase like WEGEN, we need to find out besides the prepositions and postpositions, only preposition or only postposition, do we have something else, and German is a very good example. So, 7a is only preposition, 7b is only postposition, then we have 7c, the words like vegan or gegenüber or gemes. So, I am sorry if my pronunciation is not so good, but then if you look at these words, then you can check, like you can see that they can be either used as preposition or postposition. So, look at vegan, which is because of, in this case you can see because of the father. So, either you can put it after father or you can put it before father. If it is after the noun phrase, the father, then it is going to be the postposition. If it is before, then it is going to be the preposition. So, similar is the case with prepositions like the adpositions like across or according to. So, these are the three adpositions in German which can either be a preposition or it can be a postposition. So, this is an interesting language to identify or to understand the evolution of correlation pairs. So, now let us see with this information what kind of generalization we can actually draw for things like this. Okay. So, here I would like you to understand a term called harmony of extension. So, harmony of extension means you are talking about some kind of analogy here. Okay. So, when you say harmony of extension, what has been provided by German? So, the idea here is that when you have three different forms, a third group of adposition can occur in either of the order, right? And this is an interesting thing, right? So, a particular phrase, it can be used in both ways, either you can prepose it or you can postpose it. So, when it is preposed, it occurs before the noun phrase, and when it is postposed, it occurs after the noun phrase. So, and there is an interesting distribution across the styles, and what does it say? This tells us a very interesting story about their history. And what is that history? So, the history here is that for a preposition like because of in German, which is vegan, the prepositional use is normal. For an adposition like willen, the postposition is quite normal. So, vegan is fine, willen is fine, but the same in or as prepositions, they are fine. Willen as a postposition is fine, this is always postposition, but when the matter comes to a phrase like vegan, it can either be preposition or the postposition. So, what kind of story does it tell? So, what sort of interesting thing that you can identify here? So, the story here is that these kind of observations related to the postposition and the prepositional status of the adpositions in German is that there is a particular pronominal forms that might have come, or historically, generally or historically it hasn't been that old as the postpositional form is. So, if you look at the frequency, the postpositional form seems to be older than the prepositional than the prepositional form. So, let me put it in a simpler manner. Okay. Now, in a phrase, for a phrase like vegan, which means because of, the prepositional use is normal, but the postpositional version that occurs only in the literary style, right. So, that means in the spoken form it is generally prepositional. In the written style it is always like it is mostly postposition. And to be more specific, vegan, which is because of, as a postposition is only found in literary style. So, then what does it say? If if it is found in the literary style, there are on the other hand we have the other two across and according to Gimes and gegenüber. So, these kind of these kind of things are very common as postpositions, right. And written form is always considered to be newer than the spoken form. And we identify that out of the 3 adpositions which can be either treated as preposition or postposition, 2 of them are found primarily as postposition in the spoken form, and vegan on the other hand, as postposition it is found only in the written form. So, which one is older? Considering the spoken form is older, it shows that, or we can generalize that the postpositions have become older than the prepositions. Besides this, besides the literary evidence that we have in German, there is also another kind of evidence that comes from the petrified pronominal forms, such as let us say because of me or for his sake, from where. So, these kind of construction, go check the book for more data. This also includes postposition. So, the idea here is that since pronouns generally lag behind in the change, pronouns generally do not change. This shows that the postpositions, the postpositional order is actually older, because in most of the cases, in case of preposition, in case of pronominals, you find the postpositional use, and pronominals are considered to be the older form. And since with the pronominals you have the postpositions, at least this is another additional evidence which gives us an idea that postpositions have occurred, or postpositions have evolved into prepositions. So, the older forms are prepositions, the older forms are postpositions, and the newer forms are prepositions. I hope I made sense, or to kind of summarize or to wind up, what I would say about the evolution of correlation patterns or correlation pairs is that we have adpositions. Adpositions can be preposed, postposed, or it could be either. And the data that we are taking is German. Why German is an interesting language? Because it has evolved, or it has changed from OV to VO. So, if this OV to VO change has happened, this change will actually help us to identify about the noun phrase and then the adposition evolution, which one has come first, NP adposition or adposition NP. So, that means whether the preposition is older or the postposition is older. The evidence that we have are two different evidences we have. One is related to the literary writing, the other one is related to the pronominal evidence. In case of literary writing, we see that a lot of the adpositions which can either be preposed or postposed is vegan, gegenüber and Gimes. So, these 3, out of these 3 that we have the data with us, the last 2, gegenüber and Gimes, they are found in the spoken form. However, vegan is generally found in the written form as the postposition. However, because of higher number of frequency, we realize that the postpositions might have come first, and then the postpositions, then the prepositions must have come. The other evidence comes from the pronominals. In German, you see these kind of, or these are the vegan and gegenüber and Gimes, they are mainly used with the pronominals in the postposition form, and it is believed that pronominals have not changed much in the modern languages. Because pronominals haven't changed much and these pronominals have the postposition, it is believed that postposition has come first, then has come the preposition. So, that is how the evolution of the correlation pairs have happened in these languages. Okay. So, on this note, let us move to the next set of generalizations, and these generalizations would be based on again the initial, intermediate and final stage. So, initial stage would be OV, GN and then the postposition. So, the OV form is older, GN form is older and postposition form is older. And what are the intermediate? Intermediate changes when OV changes to VO or GN changes to NG. What happens? The postpositions may switch their position by analogy to already existing prepositions. So, that means when you are thinking about the change of postpositions, they might switch their position following the existing prepositions, and the new prepositions may evolve from new NG and VO order by grammaticalization. So, this is again the condition. The condition is that either it will be through analogy, let me circle this, or it may be by grammaticalization. Okay. So, either of the ways, these are the two reasons why we see the intermediate stages. So, because of the analogy, the postposition becomes preposition. Because of the grammaticalization, new prepositions may evolve from new NG form or new VO form or VO order, it depends. So, these two are the conditions by which the intermediate stages happen. And finally, what is the final stage? The VO, NG and preposition. So, postposition is older, preposition is newer, OV is older, VO is newer. So, that is how the evolution of the correlation pairs have happened as identified by the typologist, or you can say by the linguists. So, these are a few generalization that we can draw from the historical perspective. And after this, like once we get an idea how historically languages have changed and how at the article level we have evidence, word order level we have evidence, and then this evidence can be extended to correlational pairs like noun phrase and then the adposition. So, what we realized to begin with, at the historical front, definite articles at the final stage, demonstratives at the initial stage, indefinite articles at the final stage, numerals at the initial stage. That is about the evolution of article. Evolution of word order, SOV is the initial stage, SVO might be the final stage. There could be many other word orders. There could and as far as the OSV and OVS pattern is concerned, they are always the final stage, right. And the third thing, what we study so far, how did this evolution happen? Taking into account the role of the adpositions, we realize that postpositions have come first. So, the postpositions have come first and then has come the prepositions, right. So, with this information I would like to switch to, this was about the diachronic aspect, I would like to switch to the developmental change. So, how from the mouth of the babies, like how does language change when the children they acquire their first language?